Hello everyone, my name is Nicoya, and this is 3D printing, or at least designing for 3D printing. So I thought I'd make a quick video here just on some camera mounts that I had made. And this one in particular has a lot to do with 3D printing because it's designed to fit onto the bed of my Lulzbot Taz 6. And it's designed to hold my Sony action camera on this here end over here. So I just want to go through just briefly how I created this design. I'm not going to go through full details of actually recreating everything I did here. So the first thing we want to start off with obviously is our first sketch here. And so I measured off, oh god, that sketch looks ugly with all the mirror details in there. I started off obviously with measuring the part that I was trying to duplicate, and actually let me just scroll forward here, explain what actually happens. There we are. So the camera itself has a snap-in mount where it just sort of slides into this part here, and it has some clips that fit into either side of there. And then this other end, basically, there's like a little aluminum support plate on just underneath the print bed of my printer, and this is designed to just snap on there. Well, not really snap on, but just fit on there with a nice sort of interference fit and hold things snugly in place. So I had a, we're back here again. I had a one of these mounts to start from, and there's a couple of interesting features in here. There's essentially these rails in the center here, this groove along the center that I guess it helps it line up with the camera, but I'm not really sure. It didn't really seem to be a remarkably important detail, but I reproduced it anyways because it was a lot easier than figuring out how to erase it, because there's parts of the camera holder that will fit down into here, and if I wanted to get rid of that, I'd have to drop the whole thing down and then deal with the sides not being the right height. Anyway, so there's a lot of measuring, figuring out, how deep this is, how wide it is, how tall this little rail is here on the side, and then obviously the overhangs here where it actually holds things in, how big those are. So, a lot of measuring, a lot of figuring out. There are some, of course, undetermined dimensions here as well, like how thick do I make this side here? Do I make this 5 centimeters? Do I make it 5 millimeters? However big. Honestly, this one is however big it needs to be kind of rigid. Although there was a detail on the original where and this will actually come in a later step, where the side of the holder is actually rounded, and so that was actually interesting to reproduce. Anyway, so we got our sketch, and the next step obviously is going to be to turn that into a solid body by extruding it. So, I mean, if you've ever used Fusion 360, you know how to extrude something, turn it into a solid body like that. And then from there, we added a sketch, and we have to show that sketch up here. And this one is, actually let's just go in and edit that sketch. This one is where I start to notch out the actual interfacing parts here, the two ends, make some profiles to cut that out. There's this little 45-degree angle here where the corner's knocked off, although I didn't get this part of the design exactly right, because this 45 should actually be like, I don't know, maybe half a millimeter in from here. It's kind of hard to measure these sorts of things on the original because, of course, they all have, filleted angles here. So it's like, you want to measure this, how big is it? Who the fuck knows? You're trying to measure across like a radius edge here, and it's just a pain in the ass to try and do. But I also wanted to get in the curve detail around the side here. So you can see that it didn't really matter too much how far I brought over this side of the initial extrusion, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to fill in this part and cut away this other part here. And so in the end, it's like, as long as there's, some placeholder material there to work with, so I don't obviously have a, gaps in my sketch that I can't extrude a profile off of. That's all that really matters until I get to this point where I'm actually measuring out. And the way I measure this is I essentially did a 3-point circle method where I measured from, let's see, I guess I measured from the inside edge here of the overhang. I'll tilt this up a little. You can see this line here is just projected through from that feature right there. And I measured over to where it intersects here, and then I measured over to where the largest radius is, or the largest distance, I guess. And that means that I could do, that means I could just do, an intersection here and a tangent here, and the radius would automatically end up being basically the correct size. I think I had to tweak slightly this placement where it was, again, it's hard to measure these things. My first measurement wasn't quite as accurate as I wanted, and the curve didn't look right. So I measured it again, and it turned out that it was 3 millimeters. You can see in the text down there, and this was 7.5, and that worked out nicely. So the next step, we cut off the corner here, and you can see how that's beveled off there, and we've clipped the length of it here, and that was just the push pull or whatever down to this surface. And the next one here is going to be clipping the corners here. Now I had to do this obviously in 2 operations because I'm removing material in this operation here, and in the next operation I'm going to be adding material to fill out the side there. Then I just mirrored everything over to the other side, which is convenient to do, saves you having to repeat all this sketch drawing over on this side. So the next step is to extrude out the big tongue. That's actually interesting. So at this point, I could actually reuse this object in a different project if I wanted to make, a bike mount where I could snap this in, or a motorcycle mount, or a helmet mount or something where I can snap the camera in. I could just take this, move it into a different project file, and then maybe instead of extruding something off the front here, I could extrude something off the side here and make maybe a little L mount or something to slide into. I could extrude something off the bottom and make like a 5-foot stick or something to mount this on top of, who knows. But for the printer, what I need to do is I need to basically, this is just a rectangle, I don't need to look at that sketch too much, basically just extrude a block out here. And I believe I extruded that to 4 centimeters because when I measured it, the clearance between the end of the bed of my printer and where the print head would stick out to when it was in the full Y extension on there was something like 4 centimeters, and so it worked out nicely. What was the next step here? I guess I did a little bit of filleting here just to clean up that little rough angle, because I obviously didn't want to block off the end of this channel because the camera is going to slide in from this direction, and so I ended up with the end of the rails here and the end of the main part of the face here being slightly proud of this surface. And there's a couple ways you can handle that. Like I could have just taken this profile as it was and then lofted it over here to a rectangle, or maybe loft it to a rectangle part way down and then just do a straight rectangle over from there. Lots of different options that you can do. Which one you choose is entirely up to your personal style and what you want your project to look like. I found this worked fine enough. It got rid of that the sharpness of that corner and turned out fine. Now I got another sketch here. Basically at this point I'm going to I put in a rectangle here to block out the center here because I'm going to make the 2 tabs that are going to clip onto the bed of the printer. And quickly roll forward, you can see I've extruded the 2 tabs, and this is like exactly the measurement of the thickness of this part of the printer bed. I can't remember what that measurement is. I probably have it in the parameter somewhere, but unless you have a Lulzbot TAS 6, you're going to have different dimensions here. And so next sketch was to get the interference going. And so getting an interference fit here, let me align that a little bit better. Getting an interference fit here is a little bit of black magic. I made an estimate of how far in I should come on this, and it worked out okay. It's not bad, but it's not as tight as I like it, and a lot of it is guesswork. A lot of it is, I mean, obviously, the rigidity of the material, how much infill you're going to 3D print this with, what orientation you print this in. I actually printed this in a completely vertical orientation, so you can imagine the print bed is the bottom of my screen here, and it would have printed it from the bottom in layers going up here, and that'll have a different rigidity profile versus if I printed it, for example, get a line like that. If I printed it like this, it would have a completely different rigidity. It's anisotropic, basically. Depending on which direction you print things in, things have different properties. So I took a wild guess here. Obviously, the rest of these circles are not part of the final design, but I did want sort of a nice ease in here. So I have like this radius coming in, and then I have a line coming in here just to fill in the back. Remember, these are going to spread apart when we stick this on the printer, and so I wanted a lot of contact surface here, so I didn't just have like one point of contact here and then a gap and then the other point of contact, wherever back here where the where this holder actually meets the print bed. So next, obviously, I fill that in with another extrusion, and you can see it looks plausible that this is going to fit okay, and it did fit reasonably well. So then finish up with some filleting here. You can see I fillet this for sort of an easier installation. If I just left it like this, it would have worked, but it would have been a pain in the ass to actually get that going in. Now I could have done this fillet on the sketch as well and just extruded it in one go, or I guess I'd have to do two goes because there'd be one extrusion here and then one cut operation here. The next one, I rounded over the corners just so they don't jab me, so you can see, if they're like this, I mean, it's a pointy edge. You don't want to stab someone with that. And then finally, I filled in a fillet on here in the back just so I don't have the sharp corners here. Because remember, this is going to be moving, and there's going to be a layer join right here, and so you want to give that a little strain relief. So anyways, that is my camera mount for my 3D printer, and it actually works out pretty good. It gives a good view of the print. Obviously, I'm using an action cam, so it has a super wide field of view, so you can get really close up to the print and still be able to actually see everything that's going on. I actually did a time-lapse, well, not time-lapse, I took the whole video of it, but it's like 35 minutes long, so I will be doing a time-lapse and compressing it down, printing out this one, which is another component in the whole chain of adapters here, from going from a because there's a piece that fits in here, and then this piece fits on top of that piece that fits in there, and then the camera fits on top of here. Anyways, I'll actually explain this one a little bit more in a follow-up video, which I'm actually going to record right now, but I may post in a day or two. I'll have to see what's happening. So this is my camera holder for my 3D printer, and I think it's pretty cool. It is pretty easy to design. I hope that if you are into 3D printing, that this inspires you to design something for yourself to, maybe you have a GoPro. The GoPro style ones are a little bit different. I think they have a raised section in the center instead of the slot here. This is a Sony one. So you'll have to take your own measurements, figure out exactly how you want to construct it. But hopefully this has given you an idea of how to do that. So thank you guys for watching. Remind you to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.